Okay, so have you ever seen those stories online that seem almost too good to be true? Like celebrities doing something so incredibly nice that it makes you wonder what's the catch?
Oh, absolutely. Got to have a little bit of healthy skepticism, especially online these days.
Right. So this Reddit post about Billy Joel really got my wheels turning about this whole thing. It went viral because people love a feel-good story, no doubt. But it also kind of spiraled into this whole conversation about how fans and artists interact in the age of, well, insane ticket prices and social media.
Intrigued. Tell me more about this Billy Joel thing.
So imagine you're at a Billy Joel concert, stuck up in the rafters, probably paid an arm and a leg for those tickets, right?
Yeah, I've been there.
Suddenly, Joel's crew is in the aisle and they're like plucking random people out of the crowd and taking them, wait for it, down to the front row. Turns out this isn't some rare occurrence either. People in the comments were saying Joel's been doing this for years at his shows, upgrading fans left and right.
Wow, that's wild. Talk about making someone's night. But it kind of reminds me of that whole thing with the Book of Mormon on Broadway and their ticket lottery system.
Oh, yeah.
Super cheap tickets, sometimes even front row seats if you're lucky.
Mm.
It feels like artists trying to reclaim the fan experience,
Hmm.
taking it back from the scalpers and the bots.
Totally. And it's not just a Billy Joel thing either. The Reddit thread was full of stories like this. Garth Brooks apparently moved some fans from the 300 level down to the first couple of rows, and Green Day sends their crew out into the crowd during the opening acts to find enthusiastic fans and just hand out VIP upgrades on the spot.
That's amazing. What's so fascinating is how much this resonates with fans. It's like this throwback to a different era of concerts before online ticketing made it almost impossible for the average person to get anywhere near the stage.
Right. It's brutal out there.
It reminds me a little of the history of rush tickets, especially how the musical Rent used them back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, fill me in. I vaguely remember hearing about that, but I wasn't into theater back then.
So Rent would offer a limited number of these super affordable, often front row seats, but they were only available on the day of the show.
Wow.
And it became this huge thing, created a real buzz, gave people who couldn't afford those regular ticket prices a chance to see it.
I bet. But isn't that kind of different from what artists like Billy Joel are doing? It seems like those rush tickets were often for seats that would have otherwise gone unsold, right? This is like they're actively choosing people to move, even if those good seats were already purchased.
You're absolutely right. There's a key difference there. And I think that's what resonates so strongly with people, that active choice, that personal touch. It feels more deliberate, less about filling empty seats and more about acknowledging the fans, the ones who connect with the music but maybe can't swing those insane front row prices.
And let's be real, the online ticketing game is a nightmare these days. Bots, scalpers, prices changing constantly. It feels rigged.
Absolutely. This whole upgraded seats thing feels like a direct reaction to that, a way for artists to kind of sidestep those systems and just connect with their audience. But like with anything, it's not that simple. There are definitely layers to unpack here, different motivations at play, maybe even some unintended consequences.
And we are back still unpacking this whole concert upgrade phenomenon. Honestly, I'm kind of obsessed with this whole thing now. Like, it seems so simple on the surface, but the more we dig in, the more interesting it gets.
Right. It's like a feel-good puzzle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack here, even beyond the initial AW factor. Like, WHY are these artists essentially giving away their most valuable seats.
Exactly. Those front row seats, they're like prime real estate. So what gives? Why go out of your way to make someone's year like that?
Well, I mean, there's definitely an element of genuine generosity there, right?
Mm.
These are artists who, at their core, they want to connect with their fans.
Mhm.
And in the age of like massive arenas and online everything, a gesture like that just hits different.
Totally. I mean, can you imagine seeing someone's face when they realize they're going from like the nosebleed section to being like 5 feet from the stage? Talk about an adrenaline rush.
It injects this whole different energy into the concert, creates this shared experience that you don't get when everyone's just stuck in their assigned seats.
And for the artist, too, you have to imagine that feels amazing to see that kind of joy, that pure excitement ripple through the crowd.
Exactly. And let's not forget the power of word of mouth. Those upgraded fans.
Yeah.
They're walking, talking billboards for the artist's generosity. It's like the best kind of marketing.
Right. Like that old saying, the best advertising is word of mouth. But, it's more than just that, right? We talked about how online ticketing has become this whole other beast with the scalpers and bots and all that. This feels like a way for artists to take back some control.
Absolutely. It's about reclaiming that connection, that appreciation for the fans that can get lost in all the machinery of the music industry. Like, remember how Green Day sends their crew out during the opening act?
Yeah, so smart.
That's brilliant. They're not just rewarding the people who shelled out the big bucks for front row seats. They're seeking out the fans who might be priced out of those premium spots but are still fully there for the music.
It's like they're saying, we see you, nosebleed section, we hear you. And that is huge EE. It kind of makes you wonder, is there an element of social commentary here too? Like, are artists subtly calling out the system? The way it often prioritizes profit over, like, actual passion?
Ooh, that's a really interesting angle.
Yeah.
Because you're right, actions speak louder than words. And this act of moving fans, giving them this experience they might not otherwise have, it definitely speaks volumes about what these artists are prioritizing. But it also raises some questions, right? Like questions about fairness and representation.
What do you mean?
Well, if artists are handpicking which fans to upgrade, are they even subconsciously favoring certain demographics?
Yeah.
Are they more likely to pick someone based on like how they look, their energy, even their social media presence?
Oh, that's a really good point. You know, there was actually a comment on that Reddit post about how some fans felt like the crew was specifically looking for, like, young, pretty girls to upgrade, which, if true, adds another layer to the whole thing, right?
It does. And it highlights how important it is to examine even these seemingly well-intentioned gestures with a critical eye. Because even with the best of intentions, there's always the potential for bias to creep in.
It's like they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Which leads to a whole other question. Is there a way to make this whole thing fairer, more transparent, or are we kind of stuck with this reality that even seemingly generous acts can have their downsides?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's one we are going to tackle head-on when we come back.
All right, so we're back, and we've been going deep on this whole concert upgrade thing. But now, for the big question, what does it all mean?
I think it really speaks to how complicated the relationship between artists and fans has become, especially now with social media. Like, on one hand, it gives us this level of access we've never had before, but on the other, it can make things feel really transactional and personal, and these upgrades, they almost feel like a pushback against that.
Right, like a return to a more, I don't know, human connection. But it gets kind of meta too, right? Because even though it feels like this amazing gift, they are still selling those seats at the end of the day. So does that mean those bad seats become even more desirable? Because there's a chance you could get plucked out and sent to the front row.
It's a weird paradox. And I don't think there's an easy answer. It's like, can you be commercially successful and authentically connected to your fans in this day and age?
It's the age-old struggle for artists, right?
Yeah.
Art versus commerce. Speaking of which, if you were designing the ideal concert experience, like one where both fans and artists felt valued, how would you do it?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it would take a major system overhaul, honestly. Like, what if a portion of tickets were specifically reserved for, like, diehard fans? You could have some kind of loyalty program or use fan communities to identify them.
Ooh, I like that. Or maybe a lottery system where everyone has an equal shot at those front row seats.
Right. And honestly, the technology exists to weed out those scalper bots before they can even buy tickets. It's possible.
It all comes back to intention, doesn't it? Are artists trying to game the system or genuinely connect with fans? And what does it say about us, the fans, that we're so desperate for these moments, even if they are kind of manufactured?
Right. Like, we say we want authenticity, but then we eat up the spectacle, too.
Yeah.
It's complicated. Maybe the real takeaway here is that there are no easy answer.
Yeah.
But just having these conversations, questioning things, that's how we move towards something better for everyone.
So well said. And listeners, we want to know, what would your ideal concert experience look like? Hit us up on social media and tell us your thoughts. For now, catch you next time for another deep dive.